My balls itch. Anyways, I never got interested in reading as a kid. My brain would turn into mush every time I touched a book. If I was like reading a book, I didn't even know what the words meant. I was fully literate, but I never just sat down and read a book and appreciated its contents. But now I'm reading books. I've already read 3 books in the span of 3 months. That's a book per month. That's crazy. And I used to be a kid that never read any books. Even if you encouraged me and like paid me money for it, I would not read books. Now, how did I change this? How did I change from somebody who didn't read books to somebody who did read books? It's about changing your identity. I think with more generalized identity like shifts, you're able to change more as a person. Even though it's better to just focus on one part of it, it's great to know that you're this sort of general aspect of what you want to be. And you can even generalize that after like you've generalized this thing, and then you can put it under another umbrella. Now, for weightlifting, how did I start going to the gym and start lifting weights? Well, there was 2 things that were involved when I was lifting weights. Number 1 was discipline. Now, discipline, I think it has to go first. I think you'll feel like fake if you don't actually do the thing. Because even though identity is important, I think discipline goes first. And then you change your identity. Because it allows your mind to prove to you a sort of idea of what you want. The mind can be split into 2 parts. Number 1 is the thinker, and number 2 is the prover. What the thinker thinks, the prover proves. And so if you are somebody that lifts weights, but like you've never touched a single weight in your life, the thinker thinks and the prover proves. The thinker thinks that you are a person that lifts weights, but the prover proves that you don't lift weights. And so discipline is obviously the more important thing. So before you change your identity, you actually have to start with the discipline part. The thinker thinks and the prover proves. Therefore, if you lift weights, then you're a weightlifter. But if you don't lift weights, then you're not a weightlifter. I can safely say that I'm a casual weightlifter. Like I go to the gym, and I used to not be like that. It's because I actually put my mind into going to my school gym, trying to be consistent at it, and then after the summer, I started getting more serious about it. And once I got more serious into weightlifting, then I was able to change my identity. The same thing with me with books. When I want to read books, I force myself to read books, and then I change my identity. If I can prove to myself that I can read a book and can read it consistently. So yeah, I proved to myself that I was able to read a book. If I wasn't able to prove that like physically, then I don't think I was able to do it mentally. The physical aspect always mixes and tangles itself with the physical aspect must tangle with the mental aspect. And so the mental aspect will always affect the physical, and the physical will always affect the mental. You can't have it be separate. It's important that for your identity as a person, that your name is associated with these sorts of attributes that you give to yourself. And so if you're able to attribute yourself to an athlete, bro, you're freaking running, you're jogging, you're doing all this, you can call yourself an athlete. But if you're sat at home eating chips, being fat, not doing anything, you can't prove it. You can't really prove that you're an athlete. The thinker thinks and the prover proves. If you can't think that you are a certain thing, just consider it. Consider it to yourself that you might be this kind of person. But remember, the thinker thinks and the prover proves. And so you can't really let it slide if you're not doing good habits. I know that it was hard for me to get into self-improvement because it took me a long time, a long time, because even though I knew I was able to do it, I felt fake because I didn't update my identity to myself. When you update your identity, there are two parts to it. Update your identity to other people and update your identity for yourself. And so when you update your identity for yourself, you work from within and you spread to without. And you spread outwards. And so that's why your identity is so important. If once you update your identity, you're gonna realize that you can do these sorts of things. You can do whatever you want to do. This is why Kanye was so good. Because Kanye he put himself into a thought pattern where other people thought, when he was in a stage of his career where he was a producer, Kanye wanted to be a rapper. But like these other freaking rappers, the rappers that he was producing for, they said, nah, you can't be a rapper. And Kanye somehow made it. He somehow became the most famous rapper out there. He got hella talent, bro. Hella talent and hella dedication. Because he knew that he could be a rapper. He knew that he can just stem out from being a producer. And if you can realize that, all the power to you. Everything starts in the mind. Whoever's heaven can be another person's hell. It's just however you make it in your mind, that's how it is in real life. And real life is basically just your mind. Yeah, you can change whatever attributes you want it to think. And just good and bad are just constructs of the mind. And so if you're able to think something is good and think something is bad, those are constructs of the mind. If you think masculinity is bad, then Okay, prove it. The thinker thinks and the prover proves. But if you don't prove it, then you have an empty argument, you know? If you can prove your identity to yourself, then all the power to you. But if you can't prove your identity, then what even? Why even just do stuff, you know? And that's why identity is so important, because the thinker thinks and the prover proves, but you have to have the discipline in order for you to have your mind prove it, that you to prove that you actually do these actions. Your identity is based off of what it is that is apparent about you yourself. And if you don't think it, then how can you prove it? The thinker thinks and the prover proves. Click on this video to learn more.